Just give it a few more minutes, and then we'll make a start. Bidford in North Devon, Bournemouth, Newhaven, that's just down the road from here. Luton, that's wonderful. Oh, Carol from Lewes. North Wales, Bromsgrove in Worcestershire. Great. Okay. Well, I think let's get moving. Hi again. Welcome to this Climate Emergency Centre webinar, or Climate Hub, as we also call it. Yeah, just asking everybody that's joining if they can just say where they are in the chat, where they're from, so we get an idea. I'm Dirk Campbell. I'm in Lewes, and we're going to start with we've got 3 presentations. As I say, one of our presenters from Seaford is on the bus, so because she's been delayed by engineering works on the train, so she's going to join us when she gets home. We're going to start with Bob Bollen from Kingston Climate Emergency Centre. Bob, would you like to just briefly introduce yourself and then do your presentation?
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. Okay, so my name is Bob Bollen. I've been retired just about 10 years, and I've been working with Kingston Hive since it opened in November last year. I wasn't one of the founding directors with the vision, but became a director sometime earlier this year. I found it a really exciting place to be, and I and 1 or 2 other people have been running the weekly drop-in. I've met so many interesting people, some of whom have joined with us to make a difference. I just want to say that everything I tell you is my personal view of what's happening. I haven't had the chance to run these slides past the other directors. I'm going to tell you why we're doing it, how we got started, a bit about legal and funding, what we've been doing, and end with some things for you to think about. Most of the founders were in Extinction Rebellion, and they saw an emerging climate centre movement coming along and decided to join it, along with keeping their XR commitments. Others from outside XR joined us too, people from around the town, people from transition towns. And then Rupert Read, the philosophy professor who was an XR spokesman, came out with the call to build a moderate flank, namely to reach those who agreed with XR's aims, but either disapproved or didn't feel able to contribute to direct action. But over time, more of us came to believe that civilizational crumbling heading towards collapse was already in progress, brought about in part by climate change, but largely because the declining quality of the remaining fossil fuels. So we get less energy out for the energy that we put in than we used to, and also due to many other factors. The 1972 Limits to Growth study, which I was well aware of as a man in my 20s that I looked at and studied and came to ignore, it's proving to be prescient. You can't have economic growth on a finite planet. In the top picture, you can see Kingston Station in the distance, the brick building. And in the foreground, a 3-story cycle storage facility, the Cycle Hub. And in the lower one, you can see one of the rooms we rent in it. We started by following others in the climate emergency network who were looking for meanwhile spaces in the shopping district of central Kingston. The idea being to rent at a low rent a temporary shopping space and get it for low rent because of the rate reduction that landlords get when they're doing these such things. This meant going through a quasi-council body called Kingston First, which managed the shopping district. It wasn't all that easy. Over the period of about a year, our dreams locked onto several suitable shops, only to be told that the landlord didn't want to play or it had been rented to somebody else, e.g. a junk sweet shop, which closed a few months later. Several of us had good relations with the councils and councillors and council staff. And in the end, because they couldn't rent out the space they've got, they rented it to us at a peppercorn rent. It was a bare room with 2 drain pipes and a ring main round the room. We plumbed the water around the room, installed a worktop and sink, and we got most of the tables and chairs from an office that was being cleared where one of us worked. And somebody rented a coffee machine for us as a gift. And those 2 pictures are from our opening event sometime in late November last year. We revised to become a community interest company. This took us about a month through Companies House and appointed directors. On the rare occasions we thought we needed to do grant applications, we'd use the charity status of a sister organisation. So we've never become a charity. We don't spend a great deal. Our main bills are electricity for heating, the kettles and the coffee machine, publicity and printing and things like that. We've raised all of that through 2 crowdfunders and a donation box in the room. We don't charge for tea, coffee, cakes and biscuits, but there's always a donation box there. And there's the wonderful coffee machine. That's a real treat to go in there and make yourself a cup of coffee. So here are some of the successful events that we've held. And here's some more. These last 2 projects are in the early stages, the Town-Wide Resilience Project and the Town-Wide Food Project. And these are examples of how we're working with others around the town. And in the Resilience Project, we seem to be the catalyst. People are following us. But not much has come out of either of them yet, and there are projects for next year. So here's some things to think about. So from that first point, here are some questions for you to consider. Why will you be different from other similar groups around the town? How will you make it clear to the world what you want to do? And how will you get inside with all those other groups in the town who might see you as a competitor? And on the second one, if you want to build the moderate flank, how will you reach out to and mobilize people who are not activists? Who will be in your target groups? How will you attract them? And as I said at the beginning, we've met very many interesting people with deep concerns and ideas for making a difference. And we've also met many who recognize that the work they do currently is contributing to the problem, or at best is not doing what it ought to. So this last one, as Hive as a platform, we want to see what we can do to enable people like that to break out of the old system, find collaborators, and build new organizations fit for a fairer, sustainable world. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob. If you can unshare your screen. Meanwhile, I forgot to say, yeah, that's brilliant. It's really good to see that material and to hear those questions, because they're very relevant and we all need to consider those, especially the one about people breaking out of the damaging old habits that they consider normal, but they're not aware that they are damaging.
I'll put those questions in the chat, Dirk.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. If anybody has any questions for Bob, now would be the time to raise them, or we could do them at the end if everybody prefers that. It's entirely up to you. Teresa.
Hello. I'm from Oxford and we're trying to set up a climate emergency centre in Oxford and are going through very similar patterns with council to try and get premises and everything. But I totally agree with Bob about how you reach beyond the usual suspects and into outside the eco bubble. So do you have any answers to that we can learn from? What have you found works? Because I do think it's a really important thing and quite a difficult one.
Okay, yes, thanks for that. So to be honest, we haven't been very successful. We did start some months ago down a path of let's approach teenagers and school children, or let's approach people in their 20s and 30s. Let's construct an invitation to them which is attractive and an offer. Perhaps we can help you fulfill your dreams. We can help you run a campaign or whatever. And somebody came along, this is often the way with these volunteer organizations, somebody came along who was an exceptional strategist and was going to do this for us. Then we were told she was very busy and then we never saw her again. So those are sorts of things to watch out for. My own feeling is that something I've been developing during the film event is to show inspiring stories from around the world of collective action in the face of disaster or threats of disaster. And I think they could be quite inspiring, but how you market them to the people who come along, I'm not really sure. I suppose the thing that is emerging and that I'm hoping will emerge for us, but hasn't really been discussed formally and agreed yet, is saying, what is it you want to do to make a difference in this town? How can we help you do it? So maybe that's helpful, maybe it isn't. I'll return to putting the questions in the chat.
You're on mute, Dirk.
Thanks very much, Bob. It looks like Helen has appeared again, masquerading as me. I don't know why that happens, but I think we all know who we are. So let's move on to the Lewes Climate Hub, and I'll just briefly say that it's Juliet, Jane, and Dinah, the three amazing musketeers of our Climate Hub, and that's been going for quite a while, actually. Yeah, if you'd like to go one after the other, how about you, Jane? You go first, and then Juliet, and then Dinah.
Okay, hi everybody. Nice to see so many people. So yeah, in Lewes, I think initially our motivation came out of XR campaigning, and then starting to look for more local solutions-based ideas. And we had a similar problem with premises. Really, we didn't manage to get anything commercially. So our town council actually had a small empty premises, little shop sort of place that Juliet's going to show us on the slideshow. Fantastic. That actually was going to be allocated to the coronavirus volunteers group, but we asked if we could share the premises with them, and that's how we came to occupy this little place just off the high street in Lewes. So we were lucky to get a foothold in there. With again a peppercorn rent, which I'm not sure that we ever saw many bills for in the end. It was very small premises, so it was really sort of just a little drop-in sort of session a week initially, 2 sessions a week initially, wasn't it? But it was too small to hold meetings really, or display anything. So it was just really an information point at the beginning. So you can see we've got fantastic graphic designer who's part of our team, and that's been key really to starting us off. I think is the skill set that we've managed to persuade various people to join us in leading on. So the sort of hub concept is sort of from the original group of us right through the whole concept. So people from Transition Town, where Juliet came from, people from Extinction Rebellion, people from a big organisation called Friends of Lewes, and those sort of different organisational comms, design, art skills have been really key to us managing to sort of build things together sustainably, and not sort of burn out in the course of trying to keep things running. So this was our little original premises. We, as I say, couldn't do a lot in terms of running stuff there. So we're together with our district council this time, so the slightly wider body, and a local energy cooperative. Here we can see, so beautiful, there we go. So Lewes House is our new home that we have moved into about 6-7 months ago, which is an amazing building on the high street, as you can see, owned by the district council, and a deal was brokered with Community Energy South, who are a commercial company but working nationally, in renewable energy projects. The council facilitated them becoming tenants on the proviso that they provided space for a small share of the rent to the Climate Hub and to Invesco, which is our town-based, really, local energy cooperative. So it was really a sort of council push and a combination of groups who were working together that managed to make this happen. So this was our opening event on the High Street, which we tried to make very colourful. The other thing, obviously, about our place, because we are a hub, is that the whole concept is based on trying to unite and network between the amazing array of organisations that we have in Lewes who are doing work from all different directions, and we've categorised them. You can see how many amazing things there are according to biodiversity, energy, buildings, transport, water, reducing recycling, food and farming, economy and jobs, well-being, social justice. So we've got an amazing really active community, and we sort of see our role as trying to network and build further connections out into the community and provide space for our partner groups who sort of form our core to display what they're doing to the wider community and use our space. So this was our fantastic district councillor who managed to help secure the space for us, who's now our mayor. So yeah, again, those council connections were really crucial to us starting off and managing to get this fantastic premises. Dinah, would you like to carry on with that?
Yes. So I think one of the things that really inspired us to do this, when the very first kind of idea came from Space Generators of having a climate emergency centre, was the idea of a movement of movements. And as Jane said, in Lewes, we've got lots of different really good organisations already doing lots of things. The trouble was they didn't know about each other. They're all sort of operating in silos. So we thought very much that our job was to bring all these groups together and to feed from each group to all the other groups, news and events and campaigns and projects, so that everybody knew what everybody else was doing, and to kind of weave the community together in that way, and also to spot obvious gaps where there wasn't a project or a group, where there needed to be one, and to kind of provide a space for brainstorming, and to also try and signpost people to kind of fundraising or groups where they were interested. And in under the thing about how do you get the unusual suspects through the door, and this is really a big one. You know, with XR and everything, we did a lot of standing in the street, talking to people and stuff, but people seem to have a few things in common, like if you can get children in, that brings the parents in. Working with the schools gets the youth very slowly involved. It's very hard going with youth, but the schools seem to be a good way in, and we're trying to make progress there. And also nature, and we've taken up what you seem to have in Kingston too, which is a film. And at the moment, in the climate cost of living crisis, offering a warm space as a community space where people come in and they find themselves accidentally surrounded by all this climate information is another way, sort of by doing it sort of by stealth. But we look very, very much to joining groups together, and really trying to support those groups and having them support each other. And that is slowly beginning to happen now in the town. So that's very positive. Would Juliet like to go next?
Yeah, okay. So I'll talk to you about just some of the events we've had. We've looked to have a rolling programme of events along different themes, so they tend to last for a fortnight to a month. And so when we opened, we started off with a season all about water, which, given our links to, well, our connections to Southern Water and everything that's happening with Southern Water ejecting sewage into the waterways and so on, is a subject of quite strong passion to the people of Lewes and beyond. So we started with a whole season of events all about water. And talking about our partner groups, the lady you see there is one of the co-founders of something called Love Our Ouse, which is a campaigning group all about protecting the health of the River Ouse, which runs through Lewes down to Newhaven. And they have actually pioneered the idea of rights of river, the idea of giving a river legal rights. And the District Council has approved in principle its support for that. And that's such a pioneering concept that many other communities around the country are coming to Lewes to ask, how this rights of river might work, and learn from Love Our Ouse as they develop this concept. So yeah, and Love Our Ouse has been extremely supportive and be very vocal about why they think having a hub in the heart of town is so important. We do a lot of stuff. You talk about getting in more than the usual suspects. So we do some quite engaging things, particularly at weekends, to try and get in more than people who are, hard-headed environmentalists. The tone we've taken with the hub is very friendly, welcoming, colourful, engaging, constructive. Here are practical things you can do. Here are projects, here are campaigns you can get involved in. And that's the tone we've struck, as well as explaining to people just how serious the climate emergency is. From April to May, we had a season all about biodiversity as we came into spring. So everything from supporting our Swifts, which one of our partner groups, Lewes Swift Supporters, led on, to another partner group, Lewes Urban Arboretum, encouraging people to plant more trees, support trees, understand why trees are so important to us. And likewise, another partner group, Wildflower Lewes, celebrated wildflowers, gave away wildflower plugs, educated people in the different roles of different plants and so on. And that was, we try and do things seasonally so they're appropriate for the time we're putting them on. And that again helps to bring in new people. You can talk about some quite serious issues and get over some really vital messaging about how absolutely important biodiversity is to our communities and to the wider planet, of course, but as well as getting over that serious education, having engaging topics that mean you get whole families in, so you really are going beyond those usual suspects. And that was a talk by Peter Thurman on trees, which was a wonderful talk all about the importance of them. Then going into June and July, we had a transport season called Are We There Yet? And in that we had various, you can see the content in the poster there. But one thing that's really grabbed people's imagination was that we had this giant aerial map. You can see a part of it in that lower image, a giant aerial map. And we asked people to pinpoint all the obstacles there were to helping them use active travel. What was stopping them cycle, walk more, just simply get out of their car to get around Lewes and beyond Lewes. And we captured all this data, and we're now translating that into information that we're sharing with the local councils. And it's led to something called the Lewes Movement Strategy, which is where a group of a local project board led by the town council, supported by the district council, and quite a number of community groups is going to be formulating a strategy for enabling greener movement around Lewes. And in fact, the board of that, which includes Dinah and myself, we're going to be meeting East Sussex Council, who are in charge of highways, tomorrow, and presenting our data from that and suggesting how that can inform the local transport plan, which every local county council has to formulate to decide what their travel strategy is going to be. So it's really been a case of really taking grassroots public opinion and then being able to funnel that through to local policy, which is something we're really trying to do, not just raise grassroots awareness, but actually change policy where we can at the local government level. Another lovely summertime event, Bugs, Bees and Butterflies, again communicating to people the importance of these flora and fauna in ways that were fun and engaging, because by the time you get to summertime, that's what people want to think about. You know, they want to be out in the gardens and so on. And in the bottom right hand corner, you can see the lovely garden that we have here at Lewes House, which we're very fortunate to be able to use with our partner groups and for events. And that's supported by a number of gardening groups that work with vulnerable people with learning difficulties, encouraging them to garden and so on. And, you know, it's such a lovely asset for us to be able to use. Then getting into September, we closed during August, to give ourselves a break because we had had such an intensive 4 months. And really, you know, there were a lot of people away in the town and so on, but we opened again in September with climate justice, human justice. And that had a number of really fascinating talks and discussion groups. And that has led, and Dinah can talk about this more because she's really spearheaded it, is a petition where it's all about Lewes urging our policymakers and politicians and so on to make sure that the promises at COP28 that are happening right now to create a loss and damage fund to ensure reparation for those most affected by climate change does go ahead and does provide meaningful reparation to those communities. Do you want to say anything there, Dinah?
Well, only that some people have come into the hub for the first time purely on the strength of this Make Polluters Pay poster that we put outside, just to sign it. And once they're in the hub, they see all the other things that are going on. And we've just recently come to, because we're constantly evolving how we do the hub to try and make it more and more accessible and more meaningful to more and more people. So we've decided that we should have a campaign all the time, a different campaign always with something outside to attract people in and have an ongoing campaign. And we also have a website, and on the website we have news and events and current campaigns. And we also have on the website, you know, we have an email address where people can ask questions. So it's just trying to make ourselves stretch and learn how to include all different groups of people. And I'd just like to say on that too, I think for us, what has helped no end is partnering with different organizations, constant partnering, and always looking for new partners too. The lady in the top picture who's holding the red poster that says polluters profit while the world burns is a lady from the eco churches. We have 3 eco churches who are all trying to do stuff with Christian climate action. And there are so many groups in so many towns all trying to do things. And it's so great to bring them together. That's it.
And just zipping through October, obviously time for harvest. So that's when we were celebrating local food with talks, workshops, and discussions. And in the middle top picture there, you can see one of our fermented food workshops. We had held 2 workshops and they were absolutely sold out, even though they were on a Wednesday at sort of lunchtime. We thought, oh goodness, you know, is that a reasonable time for people to want to do this? And in fact, they were really, really popular and sold out. And, you know, that was a learning, is people love an opportunity to do practical things. We also had an apple tasting, which has been one of, in terms of just people coming in off the street, that was extraordinary. That was what day? That was the 28th of October, and it was quite a sunny day. And for some reason, there seemed to be lots of people in town. And we just had a simple poster with a giant apple saying apple tasting. And when you had something that simple happening, we just had this steady stream of people coming in, wanting to discuss apples and the importance of variety and the foods we eat and so on. And at the same time, they came in for the apple tasting, but they stayed to find out about the hub. And lots of them were from others, as I said, lots of them were tourists coming to Lewes, and they said, this is a great idea, we'd love to do this in our community, and so on. So just those simple engaging things were a great way of getting people through the door. And then in the bottom right hand corner, we had a wonderful talk by another partner group, Green Cuisine, Daphne Lambert, who runs that, talking about the importance of healthy soil and the food that's grown in it to our own well-being. And she gave that talk and also handed around beautiful foods that she had made that followed the principles that she believes in. And again, that was sold out. You know, we had 30-40 people come to that. And those things, people just love the fact that this welcoming venue that has such a sheer variety of events happening. And wherever possible, we try to make these things free. I think we got some funding. Jane, correct me, we got some town council funding to put on this season. Is that correct? So
Yes.
as far as possible, we try and make events as inclusive as possible to make them free or donation. You know, give what you can, and that seems to work very well. I think the kombucha workshop we charged £5 for, but you know, that was just enough to cover costs.
And also the food bank, the local organisation that runs the food banks and community supermarkets, etc., they also gave us a grant, so they were a great partner for the food season. Yeah.
I just want to zip through. We've done so much. You know, we could be here for another hour telling you all the things that we've been able to do since March. But I'll just zip you through some of the regular features that we have on at the hub and beyond. So as you saw in the earlier picture, Lewes House is shared the front of the ground floor. We're in the right-hand room, and then in the left-hand room is Avesco Community Energy. And they have weekly drop-in sessions all about energy. So people can come and get their bills checked, get advice on how to reduce their bills, get advice on renewable energy, on insulating their home and so on. And one season that I haven't put on here yet is our Warm Your Home season, which we've just had, where we had a series of talks all about retrofitting your home for energy efficiency. And those were extremely well attended. They were kind of standing room only because it's been just so chilly that that's exactly what people wanted to know about. But it's a real asset that the issue of energy, which is such a chunk of carbon emissions, it's so fortunate that we're able to have this dedicated room all about energy at the Climate Hub. Weekdays are a bit harder to get people in. People are at work, people are busy, there are fewer people just walking by, dropping in. So Dinah very wisely said, you know, we should have more regular events that people become familiar with. So every Wednesday we have a coffee morning where anyone can just drop in, and that's an opportunity to showcase our partner groups. So we're inviting a partner group each week to come and talk about their work. So that means the partner group will also promote the coffee morning. And I think that was the first one. And in the foreground there, you can see the head of sustainability at District Council, Emily O'Brien. And they're working really well for just encouraging people when they're passing to come in. And it's just getting people familiar that they're with the fact that there are regular events that are going to happen each week or each month on at the hub. And shout out to Jane here, the little shop that we showed you at the beginning of the presentation, 2 Fisher Street, that was the first hub. Jane and Dinah and others have magically transformed that into a weekly community fridge, which is open for 2 hours every Saturday morning and takes spare food from local supermarkets each Friday night and then distributes it on Saturday. And that's got a very strong and loyal following of local people. And it's slap bang in the middle of Lewes. So it's an absolutely wonderful resource. And Jane has just got on with this week in, week out. So absolutely full kudos to Jane to making this work. Monthly green business advice sessions with Clean Growth UK, who are based at Brighton University, so they can give quite in-depth advice, or advice at every level of greening that a company might want. And that's Dougal Fleming, who's actually the son of one of our regular volunteers, Sue. And he's a force of nature and very enthusiastic. So he's a great asset to be connected to. We want to work closely with all the councils on their own carbon strategy. If they've got a strategy, then we might as well be there trying to help them engage with the community. So as far as possible, we try to communicate what their plans are. If they need local community engagement with things, such as encouraging people to get insulation and so on, you know, we're trying to support that. But we're also a critical friend. You know, if we think they should be doing more, then we say so. And if you come into the hub, you'll see leaflets and information for all sorts of projects. We get people coming in who'd like to get involved in something, but they don't know what. And then they, you know, just get a chance to browse around the hub and be inspired. And there's pretty much something for everyone because we have so many partner groups. And again, that's a regular group called the Wellbeing Tree, who work with vulnerable adults on art projects and so on, and they meet at the hub every Monday. And then just showing all the climate action being taken across Lewes and beyond. Dinah mentioned Green Churches Lewes, and this was an exhibition they put on to show how church premises are looking to be more environmentally friendly and what they're doing in that respect.
Juliet,
Yep.
How much more have we got?
We haven't got much more. It's all fairly self-explanatory. So workshops, we've held the Climate for Us workshops, people's assemblies, and that's the management team. It wasn't meant to be all women, but it kind of worked out that way. But we do have some fantastic male volunteers who obviously support us. So that's a great credit from Friends of Lewes. And that's us, and that's the sign outside the hub. So I hope that's been useful.
Brilliant, thank you very much, Juliet. Now there are some questions in the chat which I noticed. I've got a question, which is that if you were to condense all that down to 3 important points or 3 important focus areas, what would they be? Dinah.
You're on mute, Dinah.
Yeah. With us, our strength is that we are a great core team. We have different strengths and we really work fantastically well together. It's, touch wood, quite miraculous. And we have partner groups, and we also try hard to share things out pretty equally and not burn out. That's really, really important that we can keep going. So we only open 4 days a week, 11 till 3. We make sure in August that we had a good holiday. And we've just kind of rethought how we're going to go forward so that each one of us owns an event of 3 weekends and 3 weeks. And then we have a rest and somebody else does it. And that way we can keep our energy up. It's really, really important to be sustainable with ourselves, with each other, and the project, so we can keep doing it.
Yeah. I'd say there's a few questions about, you know, how have you got the energy to do all of this, and the point Dinah makes is really important. It's also really important that we have all these partner groups and the level of expertise that we've got in our partner groups. That's what we really leverage for each of our seasons. So, for instance, I was in charge of coordinating the warm home seasons that we've just had, but I kind of coordinated it, but then I had expertise from a local sustainability consultancy called Deeper Green, from a local sustainable architect, from a local neighbourhood group involved in energy efficiency called Neville 2030, and so on. And it was really harnessing all their expertise to then make talks and displays and so on all come together. So I would say just draw on the expertise that you've got around in your community. So the individual, so the core management team is coordinating these things, but you're really able to draw on that expertise.
And one other important thing, for the last few months, we managed to get funding for a coordinator person to work 15 hours a week in the hub. So she has an overview and is able to sort of take some of the load off the day-to-day stuff that's coming in on emails and just keep an eye on stuff, which has been quite important for keeping us running smoothly.
Thanks, Jane. Juliet, did you have something else?
There are quite a few questions to us about funding. Would people like us to say where our funding has come from?
Yeah, there's also Kathy Slaughter, where do you publicise events? And thanks for being here, Teresa. Yeah, if you could address both of those.
Publicity, we use everything at our disposal. So it is posters in shop windows, it's Facebook, it's Instagram. We're also very lucky that we've inherited the Transition Town newsletter subscriber list alongside new subscribers we've got to the Climate Hub newsletter. So we've kind of merged those two newsletters, and now we've got a readership of over 1,700. So that's great. We send out a monthly newsletter, and we promote all events on that. Every so often for a big season, we'll send out a single email to those 1,700 people as well. That a special season is coming up. Local news, the Sussex Express, all those sorts of things. But you're always worried that you've organised an event, and it's like putting on a party. Is anyone going to come to it? That's always a worry. Being on the high street, being somewhere conspicuous where we can put out an A-board and advertise things, I think has been really helpful, that people are starting to be aware we're there and will stop in front of the A-board and see what's happening and so on. So that's really publicity. It's fairly obvious stuff, I suppose. I think social media is more and more important I don't know that people are gazing around themselves looking at shop windows at A4 posters as much as they used to. So it's really being clever with social media and on Facebook, not just promoting stuff on the Lewes Climate Hub Facebook group, but then sharing it to as many other local groups: Lewes Present, Lewes What's On in Lewes, Overheard in Lewes, Southeast Climate Alliance, Forest Road Transition Town, all those, you know, just share it with, you know, your whole network of other local groups. And of course, all the partner groups are expected to promote things as well. Quickly running through finance, and Dinah and Jane. Jane actually should take this answer because she's our finance director. So actually I'll hand it over to you, Jane, as to where our finances come from.
Can I butt in because Ben's got a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, we still have another presenter to present. So I'm just wondering if maybe we should let Helen present and then come back to these questions, because you know, we're moving through the time.
Yeah, but it is a very important point, the financing, and people will want to know that. So hold that thought. And Helen, are you ready to do your thing? Helen is the main coordinator and force of nature behind the Seaford Climate Hub, and it's an amazing place. And I seriously recommend a visit if you're ever down that way.
Hi everyone, thanks Dirk. I'm not the main one at all, but there's several main ones, but I'll explain that. I've just got to try and share. Hang on a minute.
Where's Seaford?
Hang on just a sec. I'm just going to share, get this tricky bit done. Is that showing as a presentation?
We've got a question. Where is Seaford?
Yeah. Can I just check? Is my presentation showing?
Yes, it is.
Great. Okay. Seaford is not far from Lewes. It's on the coast between Brighton and Eastbourne. So it's quite a big town. It's about 25,000 people. And it's very nice. Okay, so the first slide here, this is our organisation is called Seaford Environmental Alliance, and it's been a charity for about 2 years. We've got a climate hub, which is actually in the old NatWest building, which is Result. And it's on a license to occupy, which is where a dodgy building can be let to a charity for no fee, because they don't know what else to do with it for now. So we've done very well out of that. Our motto is learning together, building community and making change. And I'll try and cover a little bit about how that's going. So I'm just going to whiz through a load of photos basically to give you a good old flavour of how it evolved and what we do. And then I've got one particular point to make at the end, and then we can have a discussion. So, right. So first of all, it came out of a bunch of people who met through the first Extinction Rebellion actions in London, particularly the October one in 2019. And we came back to Seaford. We'd formed these amazing friendships and bonds with each other, and we just wanted to do something. There was a particular couple, Gemma and Simon, who are just incredibly capable about things and very into sustainability, and they wanted to start looking into things like sustainable activities in the local area, like repair cafes and so on. So they were quite a driving force, but it was the relationships that we'd formed when we were with XR that were really the catalyst for it. So we had a fun day, an eco day in the park in Seaford, and then just over 2 years ago in October 2021 we got the keys to the old NatWest and opened the Climate Hub. Now the building, although it's free, it's actually free because it's awful inside and we freeze and it's damp, but we've made it, you know, we've made it quite homely. And we have problems with the roof and everything. So that's one word of sort of not warning, but just something to be aware of, that if you do manage to find a rent-free premises, it's not necessarily really plain sailing all the way. So first of all, we set up a community larder, which is on the same sort of lines as what Lewis do, and the same suppliers actually. And we started doing some displays around climate change around the hub and things like that, and just getting going. Then, as I said, Gemma and Simon set up a repair cafe, which was once a month, where people can bring in an appliance and kind of mend it with an expert. So just local people who've got these skills. You can see 3 fellas there, all on the electronics. And then we set up a school uniform exchange as well, which is immensely popular and really got a lot of families through the door. And, you know, that's sort of when things started to spark a little bit. Anyway, those 2 projects have now fledged. So Gemma and Simon have set up their own CIC, and those 2 projects have gone on to much bigger and better things. So I think that's important as well, that a hub or whatever you do, a climate emergency centre, can be used as a way to sort of help support things to move on to bigger stages. It doesn't have to stay with your hub. So that's just little bits off the website, our website. If you want to have a look at the website, see the projects and the events and past events and stuff, there's the web address. We've got some standard projects, which I'll show you a little bit. And the Alliance, the original idea behind the Alliance, it would be sort of semi-formal, where people would, you know, different organisations in the town would be a member of the Alliance and would work together on things. It's ended up to be much looser than that, which I think is okay, but we do need to revisit that. So in a few months, we'll be able to say what the Alliance means. We can't right now. So it's just some pictures. One of our bigger projects is called Seed to Supper, and that's about helping people to grow food at home. That we started that this summer, and that was giving away plants and whatnot. And my ambition for the next 3 years is to help for Seaford to become self-sufficient in self-propagated seeds and plants for food growing, because of course when the food stops coming, so will the seeds. So that's one project. Another bigger project is the Little Green Cinema, which was set up by Faye, and we have a showing in a little community centre locally once every month of various environmental film or something, loads of cake, and always a little community discussion afterwards. So a little people's assembly or something. And we're getting really good feedback about that, because lots of people like me can't actually face these films on their own at home. And it's just really supportive environment, and it's getting different people involved and different kind of voices and a load of expertise. I mean, you wouldn't believe how many people there are with knowledge about nature in Seaford. It's just incredible. There's so much knowledge and so much passion there. And it's things like that bring it out. Faye showed Kelp recently, which is a brilliant film. Have a look it up. It's only half an hour long, about kelp. And we had one of the co-directors and also somebody from the Sussex Seabed Restoration Project came along and done a talk. So that was a bigger event for us, and it was really good to work more in partnership. And again, that attracted a lot more people from the town, because we held it in the local theatre. So it's all about sort of spreading our wings a bit at the moment. Oh, I've gone backwards. Help. It's better. Okay, so this is just a few examples of funny little spontaneous things that have happened. So there we are, 3 mornings a week in the hub. You know, we got the community larder. We've always got the kettle on. You know, it's always a nice place. We've got some nice volunteers, and people just have started approaching us as sort of last year. So a guy who does is part of the Green Runners. So trying to stop runners wasting so many resources, you know, through their clothing and so on. He's got a trainer repair project. So he came in. We partnered with Plastic Free Seaford about trying to stop the vendors at Bonfire, you know, selling that old plastic tat and stuff like that. There's a recycling project. There's a ukulele band who've been raising funds for us all year. Little things like that. It's really interesting that people have started to come to us, which is brilliant. And then I need to mention the kids. So we have sort of little story times and stuff, and we have craft activities and whatnot. And what's really lovely is that we had a Halloween costume exchange, and then the kids came up with the idea of turning that into a permanent library of costumes, you know, for World Book Day and whatnot. So they've set that up now. And so our approach is sort of pretty haphazard, I have to say. Our energy ebbs and flows, you know, that's been talked about, like how do you keep it going? And sometimes it feels like the whole thing's it always feels like the whole thing's running away from us. But actually, it creates a space for spontaneous things to happen and a lot more diverse people to create things. So we've got a sort of thing that if somebody suggests something, we just sort of grin at them and say, go on then. And it either falls flat or it, you know, turns into something brilliant. So we don't necessarily have the planning that we would like, but there's something about not having the planning which makes it very creative and exciting. That's terrible pictures, these, aren't they? But we've just officially launched a climate library. So we got a grant for this, and that's I think 300 books and magazines, very wide, you know, and deep actually titles. So that's very exciting. That's a lending library. You know, you can borrow three books for up to 3 weeks, and you can add your child onto your account and stuff. We got some children's and young people's books as well. So that's different people have started coming in. That's like a slow burn, that project, but different people have started coming in and engaging with us in a different way. And then just recently, it's kind of stepped up again. So we just we're doing a green Christmas season where we're just sort of sharing ideas on how to have a more sustainable Christmas, because we just want to get in there at the beginning of November and get people to stop and think what they're doing about Christmas. And what happened was the town council then contacted us to see if we'd be a venue for the Christmas Magic, which is like a little town day. And that was yesterday. So we did a gift swap for them. And then the businesses have approached us as well, and we're going to do sustainable wrapping. So what we're hoping is that these events that happen regularly within the town that people will stop and think, well, what are the sustainability aspects and so on. So it does really feel like people's thinking is shifting, because we're becoming a normal part of the community. You know, we've been there 2 years now. I just wanted to mention that because of the relationships we form in the hub, you know, so we've got a volunteer who comes in 2 mornings a week, for example. We've all got to know each other. We've all got to trust each other. Then when we suggest, does anyone want to come on a protest, it's less scary. And quite a few people have come on a couple of local protests, even up to London for things, when they wouldn't have dreamt of it before. But because they know us and hopefully we're not too scary, that's kind of enabled that for them. So that's quite an interesting thing about moving outside of the eco bubble, I think you were talking about. And I just want to mention hub culture, you know, so I mentioned the thing that, you know, if somebody has an idea, they have to do it, you know, that kind of thing. But also it is very inclusive because it's so haphazard, and we try and, I mean, it's not totally haphazard, but, you know, because we're always running to catch our tails, and it's maybe not as planned as it could be. That does allow for a lot of creativity and inclusivity. So we've got some volunteers who, I think it's fair to say, probably don't understand about the climate and ecological emergency, but they're picking stuff up and they're doing useful role at the same time, if that makes sense. So I've got a personal feeling that in a sense, it doesn't matter what we do, as long as we're doing it together and that the community builds. You know, we could be doing something about, you know, anything, wouldn't have to be about environment. Got a feeling that the relationships that we forming now are what we're going to need as things progress. We do want to step it up. We do want to become more strategic and have some projects which have a much bigger impact, but that's the nature of it at the moment. So there you go. Hope that wasn't too much. I'll just try and unshare.
Thank you very much, Helen. That was really comprehensive and good. And I like your point particularly, and I think this applies to everyone here, Bob and Juliet and Jane and Dinah, saying that establishing these well, they are community centres, in fact, is what they are, aren't they? They're sort of climate emergency centres nominally, but because they are they're very inclusive and they attract people who aren't, or groups who aren't primarily identified as eco-activists or what have you. But you then have quite a broad constituency that you can message when the time comes for important messaging. It's 7 minutes past 8. We want to keep our timing to finish at 1:30. So can I suggest that, because we've got some questions in the chat, if Juliet, you were talking about, or I think it was Jane, you're talking about financing, funding. Could you address that as concisely as you can? And we'll get on to the questions that are in the chat.
Yep. Okay. So with our funding, we've lots of local things. The town council, the district council have supported us. There are a couple of organisations called the Sussex Community Foundation and the Chalkcliffe Trust, and we've also had there's a big local in the Ouse Valley, a big project that covers lots of districts called the Ouse Valley Climate Action, who have had a massive national lottery award. So they are, if there's anything like that going on with the lottery in your area, one of the things that they often are focusing on is setting up hubs, and hub is a buzzword, and they're looking to do that in lots of regions. So have a look and see if there's funding for that, because I'm sure CEC's come under that. Just organisationally, we found it's really useful if you have some sort of spreadsheet to find out where and when the funding opportunities are, because they always pop up to a week or 2 weeks before the deadline, and then you don't have time to write the application. So if you can get ahead of that, that's really helpful. And also we've tried to be quite targeted in asking for money for specific, like if we're putting on a season, it's really seems to be really effective to say we want money to host this event and these people are supporting us and this is what the money is going to be spent on. So it's easy to explain and for funding bodies to get their heads round. And also our partner groups, obviously, if they're putting on stuff in the hub, then hopefully they will help to fund it as well, because they have different sources of income.
Thank you very much, Jane. Suzanne, would you like to go, and then we'll get on to the questions that are in the chat.
Hi, it's absolutely fantastic to see so many recognisable faces from around the CEC network. I haven't been on a Zoom for a while. So I'm Suzanne from Wandsworth, and I had a little project similar, but not similar in so many ways. I'm still so inspired by this idea, and it's crucial that this work is done. And I've seen many examples of it, all in different arrays. One thing I really want to ask hubs is how essential or not essential did you think a business plan was to write before you started? Business plan meaning, where would you get your money? What is your aim? Who is your audience, and how are you going to reach them?
I'm just wondering, Bob, if you would like to answer that, because we haven't heard from you for a while.
Hi, Suzanne. It's good to meet you again. It's been a while. The answer to that is I don't believe we've ever made a business plan, and that's perhaps one of our problems. I wasn't involved in the founding events or in the founding discussions. I felt I was too busy with Extinction Rebellion at the time. I wish I had been. And what did happen, and it was mostly women who were in that group, and one of them who was an amazing inspirational coach, who sadly we lost in just around about this time last year. And those 4 women had cooked up a really inspiring vision. And perhaps they thought that was good enough and we didn't need a business plan. I don't know the answer to that. I think that's all I've got to say on that particular question. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob.
I'd like to add something briefly. It's not essential, might be beneficial, but it's not essential at all. We haven't done one. The nearest we got to it was when we went to register as a charity, so I had to kind of do the objects. What I'd say though is it's already changed, and arguably that's out of date already. I think people's assemblies is the way to establish that. So whoever you've got, just get talking in a community assembly. So I think after the first year we had a little people's assembly at the hub, and that came up with those 3 learn together, build community, and the other one which escapes me at the moment. They're catchy, obviously, you know, so it's got to come from the community. I think I would say just start.
Indeed, I agree with you. And vision is different from a business plan, isn't it? A North Star is something. A business plan you can change every 6 months, 2 years, depending on where you are and who you've got. And I think it's the real flexibility and agility and listening skills that are really key to the successes of these things. But also the sustainability and the permanence of them. I can go back there next year, next Christmas, when I want to do Sustainable Christmas. Anyway.
Okay, Suzanne, thank you for that question.
Thank you for your responses.
I'm looking at the chat here, and Julie asked, would it be possible for the group in Luton to visit all 3 of the projects? And the answer is almost certainly yes. I can't see anyone saying no.
Bob has messaged me privately about how to do it, so thank you.
It's just to know when the places are open, isn't it? So Lewes is open Wednesday to Saturday, 11 till 3. I think it's closed for Christmas, but we'll be opening, is it the 11th of January? Can't remember. Yeah. Bob, when are you open?
Currently, we're only open pretty reliably on a Friday afternoon, 2:30 to 5:30. And otherwise, the events that are on our programme. But I can arrange some other time for Julie or others to come and visit.
Thank you.
Okay, if you share contact details, maybe Julie, if you DM Bob in the chat here. Helen, when is the Seaford Hub open?
Thursday, Friday, Saturday mornings 10 to 1. If you want to email in and just arrange something, that'd be great. It'll be on our website, or come along to one events or something. You'd be very welcome.
Okay, great. Brenda asks, how did you get people together in the first place? I think the answer to that is everybody has a network of contacts. It starts from a group. In the case of all 3 of the climate hubs featured today, it was Extinction Rebellion that got it going. But because we all kind of multitask, don't we? So we're Extinction Rebellion, and we probably belong to another local community group or a transition town or something. That does extend the remit, and you build from there, really. Unless I've got that wrong, I'm ready to stand corrected. Bob says Kingston upon Thames. Yeah, not well, I'm a town councillor in Lewes, and we have an operating majority of Greens. So we have 12 Green councillors, and the other 8, no, the other 6 are different parties. There are no Tories, and we have no Tories in the district either. So we've got 3 levels of authority: town, district, and county. And there is definitely a green groundswell going on down here. Bob, what are your politics in Kingston?
It's largely Liberal Democrats. There's 1 or 2 Greens. We have tricky relationships with them. We have even more tricky relationships with the council officers. It does seem that all the time that decisions are all about making sure that Kingston isn't loss making. Other question of how overtly political or not are you? So that's something we've discussed at Kingston Hive, and I think where we've come to is to be careful what we're saying publicly, but inside the hive to not hide your own politics. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, we answered advice on what sort of organisation to set up as. Bob, you're a CIC. Helen, what are you?
We're a charity, but we weren't all the time. I'd say you can set up without being in anything. You don't not necessarily get a premises, but you can start activities without being in anything.
Registered charity, was that?
Yeah, it's quite a lot of work, you see. So if you can get stuff going beforehand, that's good.
Juliet.
Yeah, we initially tried to become a charity, and the caseworker we had at the Charity Commission just didn't think we were suitable as a charity because we did promote ourselves as an umbrella organisation for all our partner groups, and they said, well, we can't verify the charitable objects of all those sub organisations. So we've ended up as a CIC, which has been fine, except obviously, you know, you can't get things like gift aid on donations.
Great, thank you.
And also, just as a CIC, make sure you get your statements in on time. So we were late getting our accounts in, and then we tried to appeal. And what we didn't notice was that you should still pay the initial fine, because if you don't, you get a higher fine, and we got the higher fine.
Oh dear, that sounds like my late tax return story. Good. So unless anybody else has a question, I think we can, or anything that anybody feels they should have said and haven't. Jane, you've got a question.
Oh, yeah, it was more of a comment, because everything's just amazing. And we have been along, because we're in Hastings, so we've been along to Lewes to see the oil machine and various events, the felling at the depot cinema. But something we've started doing locally is we've had a couple of people's assemblies, but we've also done some a lot of work during the strikes. We went on strikes and then we talked to people. So we've built really good relationships with local unions. So that's been another good way to get, they're kind of people who are already taking the step into activism because they're on strike. So they may not have felt, they don't see themselves always as activists, but you've got a long time when you can talk to them about climate and how it impacts on. So when we went to the hospital, when it was the ambulance workers and the health workers and things like that, and that's worked really well for us. Mm. So that's a thing for people to think about.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Jane. Just in terms of contact details, Helen, would you mind putting the website that the Seaford Hub website address in the chat. So,
Yeah, I've done that.
oh, you have.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think you just done it. Are the hubs emergency hubs? Well, nominally, yes, they are. But since most people are not concerned with the global crisis, climate crisis, some are, obviously, but the majority of people are more interested in what they can do locally, local solutions to global problems, that kind of thing. Haven't found it. Yeah, go on, Helen.
Yeah, I'd say this is a really important question. I know we're sort of short of time, but I think it's really hard because people ignore it. If you have, displays saying, "Oh, this is awful," they just kind of ignore that. They're coming for their bread from the community larder, and they just won't go there. I think it's all through the relationship. So we have I don't know if it's the right thing or not, but we have quite a mild presentation. We're not very doomy, but in the conversations we have, we can gauge how far we can go with an individual or within an individual event. So you can communicate about the emergency in other ways without it being like your brand. Difficult. It is difficult.
Suzanne, comment.
Yeah, thanks. Just to add on to that, which really resonates with me and many people, because some of this, because this is an XR chat, and many of the energies have come from resistance. The two things that I would say is that one, there are other climate hubs that are doing the same sorts of things that are not on the CEC Space Generators website, and those are reaching and they're doing the same work, but they're not talking about the emergency quite so much. They're talking about the co-benefits of the cost of living crisis and a sustainable lifestyle. So on that note, the co-benefits is the key to getting a more mainstream approach to this. And while it is an emergency, and this Rupert Read is, we're well past midnight, that there are many other messages that will be more interesting to who you're talking to, and it's where they are, not where you are. So I've learned that from Guildford Zero. Yeah, there are many great places, and that they're doing it so fantastically. So all of this needs to happen at speed everywhere. That's all I can say.
I think you're right. Ben, where are you?
No, I think, sorry, I was just going to point out that I think Dinah has had her hand up.
Oh, sorry, Dinah.
It's okay. No, it's exactly on those things. Like, I think Helen's point that it's relationships that will see us through is really important. And I think it's kind of threefold. It's the individual relationships that you strike up with somebody. It's the partner groups, relationships with you, with the hub, and with each other, that they all get to know each other and know what each other are doing and learn about each other. And then there's the nationwide climate emergency hub network. So, for example, if we have a successful action in Lewes about, say, the Vote Climate Greenpeace campaign to vote tactically and swing seats, and we come up with something good there, we can share it with the climate emergency network, and it will go to all the different hubs all over the country. If there's someone doing a good practice or got a great idea of how to get people in, it's shared right across the country. And this is like a real strength because it's a conduit. So and once again, like if I wanted to go up to Hull, I've been on webinars with people in Hull and seeing the fantastic work they're doing, and I can just walk into their hub and know people. It's really fantastic. So I think that point about relationships is really important, but that it's, you know, personal, neighbourly and national, and that's it.
Thank you, Dinah. Brenda's made a very important point, which is that we're falling into the category of white middle class areas, and Luton is industrial multiracial town. And is there another town like Luton that Brenda can make contact with?
Islington? Yeah, no, it's just part of London, but it's
There's a climate hub there, climate centre there. Julia.
They do. They have sorry to button, but they have the Islington Climate Hub. I would say it having known a little bit about Luton myself, it's not like Luton. But I absolutely take this question. It's really, really important. And it needs to go into diversity deeply.
Yeah, I would say, Brenda, if that's your primary issue here, or maybe not the primary one, but it's a way up the priority list, that could be something that you could address in order to create the model for yourself. Julia.
Transition tutoring been really successful, and they're obviously much more multiracial than somewhere like Lewis's. But yeah, I'd get in contact with transition tutoring and see what all the great work they're doing.
Right. Good. Well, I think we're approaching 8:30, so we can. Oh, Bob, you've got a question.
Yeah, I thought I'd say this rather than put it. Well, I put it in the chat as well. I had the privilege of meeting an enormously successful community centre in the outskirts of Bristol, in Lawrence Weston. Now, they don't make climate emergency an issue. It's all about making Lawrence Weston a better place. And the guy who runs that is hugely impressive. So I'm going to put their website in the chat, and maybe there's some useful information in that.
Ben.
Yeah, just to say, I will try and send an email out after this to all the people who registered, and then maybe if the different presenters can give me their links to their slides and any other links they think useful, then maybe we can put it all in one email and send it out to everyone, including the recording, and then hopefully that will be useful.
Wonderful. Well, thanks everybody. Some people had to dip out earlier, but that's okay. We all got other things to do. So I hope that has planted seeds for people. There's a lot of comments saying how inspiring it is. I found it very inspiring myself. So let's leave it there and see you all next time. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Bob. And thank you, Helen.
And thank you, Dirk.
Thank you, Dirk.
Bye, everyone. Good luck.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone else. Good luck.